Oh,
Welcome to tonight's show. My name is Lou Jensen. This is the weekly get-together of the INE Network, Inspiration and Encouragement Network. We started back in the 80s, 83, building a program that would help artists do better in the marketplace, called the Artistic and Business Academy. And we've nudged this along now for years. It's a kind of an entity where most of us are artistic type creative people who are looking for a way to improve our position in the marketplace, and that's just really challenging to find ways to do that. All the art schools want to teach you how to do the art, but when it comes to doing the business of the art, they get just gets crazy. And years ago, I was trying to find a way to retire early from dentistry. I practiced dentistry for 15 years with my brother, and I came on to a hobby that just lit my fire. Nothing I'd ever bumped into turned me on any more than that. And it will be 38 years ago, Easter Saturday before Easter coming up, 1977, when I launched that effort. And eventually started to make some money and started to do a little better. And I kept thinking, well, if I put a little more energy into it, maybe, just maybe, I know it sounds crazy, that my hobby could outproduce my dental income. That kind of became the line in the sand. And I thought, if I can do it, then I can retire early from dentistry. If I can't do it, no big deal. So I really started pouring on, and I got counsel and help from a couple of mentors of mine who were extremely good in business and began to teach me more what I call now the trading game. The trade winds happen today. Millions, billions, trillions of dollars traded hands today. But most of us don't get in on that trade much, except everything in life is a trade. Every hour of every minute of every day is a trade of something with somebody. And we can either put it in a position where it gradually starts to trade for some value and then eventually trades for money and income. I don't think if you leave that to accident, I just don't think that ever happens. So tonight we're going to start a series, a Master Series program that I present at the beginning of each year. We just finished a series on pricing, and then we did a 5-part series on upscale marketing. Now we're going to start the series of personal branding. And I just don't think there's a 3-part series that I teach or have coached for all these 25 years that's more important. People who figure this personal branding thing out seem to do quite well in the economy, and people who do not figure it out struggle their entire lives. So I've got a bunch of people in our film strip. I want them to come and turn their mics on and introduce themselves. These are friends of mine and members of the INE Network, have been along for the ride for a long time. Deb, do you want to introduce yourself first?
Hi, I'm Debbie Kornman, and I'm from Boiling Springs, Pennsylvania.
Welcome, my dear. Good to have you here tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Ed?
Good evening. I'm Ed Abels. I'm from Casa Grande, Arizona, and I'm here trying to learn.
That's where it starts, Ed. Thank you much. Good to have you here.
Yep.
Jay?
Thank you.
In the middle of all the storms.
Yeah, good evening. I'm Jay Richardson from definitely very stormy Oklahoma tonight.
Wild, wild weather. Keep your head down, Jay.
I will.
Joni? Joan?
who?
You. Looks like her computer might have.
I don't know why mine
There you
wasn't.
are.
Okay. I'm Joni Beck from Long Island, New York, and I went to school in Maine, and I live in Florida now.
Yeah, she's retired and lives in Florida. Good to have you here tonight, Joni.
Thank you.
The whole world's looking for this guy. He's on posters in post offices nationwide. Mel?
Hi, I'm Mel Joines, calling from Asheville, North Carolina.
Yeah, good country, good country. Nick?
Hi, I'm Nick Pleschuk. I'm in Rochester, Minnesota.
Good to have you here tonight, Nick. These are all friends of mine, and we've been mixing together with this hobby into a business kind of thing for a long time. And what I enjoy more than anything is the coaching that I try and share with people when they're trying to get started. We delivered a kit to a lady today who was quite a good artist, but she struggled a whole life making a living with that talent. And Tammy set her up today and got her going, and I got her internet connection and her email, and we starting to fix her email address and get her on Google Plus now with us. So I don't know if Rochelle's gotten on with us tonight, but it's going to be fun to introduce to you guys because we're part of the group that's actually doing things. And then it's one counsel I give to everybody. When you're trying to climb the mountain of success, that you don't want advice and counsel from someone who's never done it. They just do not know what they're talking about. They've read it in a book, dreamed it up, think about it, whatever, but they've not actually pulled it off. And that kind of counsel usually just muddies the water, confuses your thinking. It makes it really difficult to understand the real principle. I can't see you playing on Google Plus anymore and not realize how significant a personal brand really is. What people see of you and what they think of you is a big deal. And yet, if you just leave that to accident, then it will evolve into something, but it might not be what you want it to be. So tonight we're talking about personal branding from design by pattern and by design rather than by accident. And as we get started with tonight's show, let me fire up my screen share. Where is it? Right there. Okay, that should be enough. Let me go right to there and crank it up. Okay, now have we got personal branding up?
Yep, sure do.
Okay, we're on our way. What started out as a concept I started doing my hobby of literally, sounds crazy as can be, it was carving eggshells. I touted it as the most delicate artwork in the world. And my first little art show in Park City, I did the Park City Art Show. I did $3,400 worth of carved eggshells, sold them in 2 days. And I was hooked. From then on, I kept thinking, oh my good Lord, have I stumbled onto something. After a while of doing it, I began to dawn on me that turning the dental drill into a straight handpiece rather than a right angle tool would be a perfect way to go at this hobby. So I backed up and started working on trying to build the tool as well, because no one in the dental trade wanted to touch a straight designed high-speed air handpiece. And they named it the Paragraver, P-A-R-A, Graver, G-R-A-V-E-R, because it was used for engraving first. Para means alongside, similar to, or not really something else. Paranormal, paragraphics became the concept that we added when we added the sandblasting. We start out with high-speed engraving, then we added sandblasting. We've added airbrushing, and then we're working on screen printing now. So the truth is, for every individual, at any given moment, you can have an idea that then really begins to change your life. If you consider that a business card is advertising, then who you give it to is marketing. What it says on it is branding. So this should be fairly easy for you to kind of separate out the difference between advertising, marketing, and branding. But what you say on it is your choice. And this then begins to give you direction of which way the business is going to actually go or not. If you have a Google Plus profile and communities and then pages that begin to replace the regular traditional business card, This is the advertising portion. This is the function of getting yourself out in front of humanity. Who gets that, or how you spot that info, is your marketing. In the last 5 shows I talked about targeting your marketing effort and go after the upscale customer. So what you say on it then it describes you and your work, and that is branding. So if we're going to pay attention to the proven business concepts and do something with them, then we got a chance. If you don't do this part of the equation, then you're going to starve. I can't tell you how many people have called me or sent me an email after I've done this series of 3 shows. And it doesn't take me about a minute and a half to really figure out that they did not get it. Even though they sat down for 3 hours and watched these shows, they're no further along at building a personal brand than they were otherwise. And I'm going, what ear did it go in and go out of? I don't understand not being able to see the difference between a personal brand. If you look at a person's profile, their picture, their avatar on Google+, you can see some avatars that are really fun. They're people, they're faces, they're human beings. You're attracted to them. And just from the smile on their eyes and face, you want it. They're pleasant. And then there's all the others. They have some weird something as their avatar just because they think that's clever or cute. It's about as attractive as a doorknob. And or they're an object instead of a person. And I'm going, how in the world do you expect to make that work when you don't, or you have a picture that's so poor no one can really tell who it is or what it is or too far away? So what I'm trying to present here now to you is a world that I've kind of, I don't know, I guess I've herded it down the road is the best way to describe it. I did what worked for me, then I started teaching and coaching talent. We've had quite a few people succeed in our 7-step master's program, and they're at the point where they're pretty well gotten to the point where they can manage on their own. You don't need my counsel or my help or advice anymore, and they start then becoming teachers and trainers within our circle. And it's my hope and dream by the time I check out and finish my career in my life, there's an artistic business academy on the web that will have every tool to help someone succeed in the marketing of themselves. I picked up 6 more books of Opportunity Intersection today from the printer, and we've sold 6 more, and there's 6 more people are going to get into the business of planning what they're going after rather than throwing mud on the wall. If you take your as-is world and try and shift it over to better, that's a business plan. And targeting that effort from where you are now to what you might want to do that's better should be something that you really begin to put into place. One of my favorite quotes in my life is, I can't change the wind, but I can adjust my sails. And everybody I know can repeat this quote, but not everybody can live it. Most human beings cannot change their own circumstance. They will not back up. They won't change anything. They'll talk about it, talk about it, talk about it. But in order to get the ship from as is to better, you've got to change some sails here. You've got to adjust some thinking that you might not ever really considered in your past. I went to a seminar one time, business, that was for business seminar, and the cover of the brochure, this is the cover of it, was How to Run Your Passion Like a Real Business for Change. And God, that hit me hard, because this is where I was at that time. I was just playing with it. I really didn't even think about it as a successful business. And so when I started to play more with the reality that the #1 card in all the game of business, the trading game of business, is uniqueness. If what you have that you trade in the marketplace is same old, same old, same old, same old, same old, everything else, you're really going to struggle. So how would uniqueness begin to have something to do with branding? Well, if you're the same person as every other person out there, then the reality is you're this egg here instead of this egg here. And I think every human being has within themselves this unique factor. How you would see to do your art is different than how anyone else would see. Keith Hall and I were on a trip together one time, and I found this card. It was a greeting card. The harder you work, the luckier you get. And to me, that is the real description of success. Most won't do this much with their life. They just won't take it on. They won't work hard enough at it, and therefore it doesn't produce any results for them. A friend of mine, Wally Goddard, cut that sign out for me when I first got started with it. Before there was a company, before there was anything, he came over one day, he gave me this. He says, Lou, he says, I think this is kind of where you're headed. And it fits so well with my innovative world. I do a lot of development, product development stuff now. And I work with the I&E network to help basically give birth to new talent. And I'm definitely a fire starter. Hang around with me very long, it isn't going to be dull, I guarantee you that. And the thing I love most is conjuring up new ideas and new possibilities and new ways to go. But to succeed at almost anything, I think what I really did was pick up this thread of interest and never let go. I'm very proud of the fact that after 38 years, I'm still carving eggshells. It's the core of what started all of this. And if you think about the process of innovation, it's usually boiled back down into an idea of incubation. You take the idea and incubate it until it begins to grow into something. And that's also what you're going to do with your own brand. I don't know anybody that can sit down and whip this thing out in one evening or 1 hour or one day. It really takes a lot to get to the point where you can discover that you have some talent, develop that talent, master that talent, and then this is where the I&E network really belongs, is teaching you how to share that gift with the world. It's a lot of fun in my career. I handed out a lot of prescription to help everybody deal with their dental pains and aches and pains. And then one day I saw this little clip art thing, and it didn't have a passionate prescription in there, so I put that in and added it. And that's all I hand out anymore. Retired from dentistry over 30 years ago, and I love playing with people's futures. People see that they have a gift and they have an ability that can take themselves from an amateur clear up to the master of something. And once you begin to figure out that this is a way of navigating, this is a way of taking a concept and making it work in your life. I had a girl from Texas bring this greeting card up and gave it to me a while ago. And it was in my week-long course that I teach, and studio startup course. And well, I looked at that and I thought that's about the most clever way to describe most people starting to look at this whole concept. And how in the world do you come up with a personal brand? If you're going to go in a particular direction, but you don't ever set a course, then you don't have anything that you can basically stay with. You've got to set the course. You've got to determine where you are now as opposed to where you most would like to end up. And I like the sailing direction, change the sails and take on the rest of your life. I like climbing mountains a great deal. This is our backyard right here, Timpanogos. 11,000 feet to that summit right there. And from this point down in the valley where everyone starts as an amateur to the success of the summit, it really does require some climbing, some work. There's no other way to get up there. In our program, we go from amateur to an apprentice, from apprentice to a technician, from a technician to an artisan. Pro means you're finally starting to make some money with it. Okay. After this point, then we'll look at having you become a trainer and a coach, and then ultimately the master is someone who's put themselves there and made it work to themselves to a degree. The Small Business Academy has a reputation in the marketplace that's quite successful for a federal government program. And the SBA says the number one reason for small business failure is lack of a business plan. And what a business plan means is you know kind of what you're doing. You can be selling eggs in Baghdad in this format of business and trading with the marketplace of things that something people need. Needs are traded like that. Okay? Or you can produce a custom piece of artwork on a commission. The choice is either do 3,000 things for $1 or one thing for $3,000. That's also a business perspective. That's a business choice. If you change the vernacular or the concept of selling from a four-letter word you don't like to trading, we share things. We don't have to sell things. And we move from things that people need to things that people want. It's probably the most significant thing that I've spotted in my entire career of building the company and then building the I&E network, was that you don't want to get caught and trapped in trying to start a business of things that people need. It's the entire Yellow Pages, but it's extremely competitive over on that side of the business economy. What you want to do is find the path less traveled and go that route. Don't stick with your uniqueness. Don't try and get yourself in a position where you've got to have a ton of money and compete heavily. Number one reason by the SBA says the reason for small business failure is they lack a business plan. So how many of you are operating your life with a business plan? First of all, have a plan. Is it written down? Are the bullet points that are important in a business plan really there, and that you've really considered those options? The plan helps you target and focus your effort. Without a plan from as-is world to better, then it's always mud on the wall. You're shooting from the hip pocket. And that wastes time and money, which most of us don't have enough of. Can you take something of very little value and then turn it into your entire life? You can't find anything more worthless than an eggshell. And I've made millions with it. So from the idea of, I don't think you can throw anything at me that doesn't have some way to reposition the value and then turn that into your entire life of living. From engraving on a car window to carving a gourd to carving wood, glass, metal, a knife blade, a gun stock, picture frame, and I'll throw in motorcycle here for you, Jay. There's just no end to it. And the idea that you can improve your life and your lifestyle from your as-is world to something better, what a motivation here. What an incentive to climb and try and make that work out. One day, Al Hohn's one of our top masters, and he belongs to a family. All the grandfathers, the sons, and now the grandsons are all involved. And they used to be cabinet makers, all of them. Now they're all in their own specialty art market niches. And Al came in, he says, Lou, I got to show you this. He says, isn't this what you're talking about, a business plan all the time? He says, this was my life for a long time. Is that just the greatest example? I just tickled me clear to death. And I says, oh, we got to have a picture of that. This is what we're talking about. That's your branded effort. This is everything else. You see? This is a piece of Al's work. This won the Western Design Competition in Wyoming. It sold for $85,000. It had a table here and a wood stream coming through here, and then the fish here, fishing creel. His son, 22-year-old Kate, did the carving of the fish creel, and what an absolutely impeccable project to put into the marketplace and go out and produce and sell yourself. I came up with a compressed word. I like to compress words and have done it for years. What you ought to do. And whenever someone throws this concept at you, it's them trying to tell you what you ought to do is this, Larry. What you ought to do is this, Susan. You ought to rethink what you're doing, because they see something in your own circumstance, in your own life, that maybe you don't see. Ask yourself, what is the personal passion of your life? What do you most like doing? When you have nothing else to do, what will you go putter at? And write that down, because that's got something to do with this passionate prescription of finding your brand. What do you know most about? What do you know a lot? What have you spent your entire life acquiring skills with? This is always a clever one. I'll go to this often because their parents told them, you're really good at this, or you're really good at this, or you're really good at that. Or you had a childhood ambition. All my life I've wanted to carve wood. All my life I've wanted to perform music. And then a favorite child memory, a favorite memory that you have. These are little cue cards. These are little concepts, check marks that might begin to help you boil this down to what you ought to be doing in the marketplace. Tammy gave me this book for Christmas, and we had met Dean Morrissey, bought several of his pictures, and he wrote this book. This is the story of the Sandman. This is where the Sandman came from. It's called The Ship of Dreams. And I have used my own imaginary ship of dreams in my life for years. So I'm going through this book, and in the picture was a man dressed up in a really beautiful coat. He was the Sandman, and had a bit of a beard, and it just looked like me. I was so startled and so surprised to bump into something that I didn't expect, that then became more of a dream for me to pull into my life. So you watch for these impressions, these little whispers, these little moments that just show up that going, you know what, I really like that Ship of Dreams kind of an idea. I saw this ad in Coastal Magazine, and I love anything to do with water. I'm a water crazy nut, ocean going ship guy. And this picture is, put yourself here. Now, I've used this slide in my studio startup courses for about 15 years now. And it takes quite a bit of imagination to put yourself in a different circumstance. Not some place that you would normally see yourself in, but someplace extraordinary, someplace unusual. Unique is what you're hunting for now, okay? If you look at what your success might mean to you, and then you begin to focus and concentrate your efforts on that, you can literally start what I call a business working journal. Now we do it electronically. I've got a community on Google+, teaches how to do your phone. You build a community for yourself, a private community, where you can take any image off of Google+ and throw it into this electronic digital holding place, if you will. Now, I've done this with images for my entire life. The images I'm going to show you tonight have come out of my business personal working journal. As you collect things that you really prefer off of Google+, screen capture them and throw them over in your electronic journal, after a time you're going to start seeing a tendency or a trend of the kind of things that you prefer. You'll see, I mean, it's so fun for me to scan back through what I've snagged and put in there since January. Just since January, I've got 8,000 pictures on my phone that I've snagged. And when I start scanning down through those 8,000, it's just like a mirror coming right back on me of my preferences. How could anyone else do this for you? They can't. You have to do it. Every time something touches you, something hits you hard. Tammy sent me a picture this morning of a sunrise or I guess it was a sunset. Oh, wow, I just love this particular image. Well, you don't always know right at the moment why it touches you. But I'm going to try and encourage you to start collecting the images and get this journal, digital electronic journal, set up. It's as easy as pie to do, but it's extremely powerful if you bother to start filling it up with the things that you like. If you bump into something on a Google Plus stream now, you don't have to go buy magazines anymore. I used to do this with, hey, go buy a series of magazines that you like, and then every picture in the magazine that pops you, catches your eye and is attracted to you, that's a zinger. That's something you want to hang on to. And then you want to take some time to study it through and see if you can't literally start fleshing out your preferences. I saw this picture years ago in a magazine, and I've kept it ever since in my journal. Because if I could die after having my great fun lifestyle, if I could finish my life right in this leather chair, I'd be one happy camper. We got a fire in the fireplace, great big old lazy, beautiful leather chair, a little Remington here, a little Navajo here, a really beautiful fireplace mantle right here. It just needs one more thing, doesn't it? It needs soul-worthy carved right in that block of wood. Keep these images. Look for these kinds of things. And then ask yourself, why do I like it? What is there about this kind of lifestyle? I found another one that I really liked, Field of Dreams. I went, ooh, yes, boy, do I like that. Yes, I like that a lot. As I retired from dentistry to chase a dream, I took the road less traveled. You don't find very many professional people leave their career to go do something else. And what I did was make a path that no one had ever traveled before, and I'm trying to leave a path for others. You need to do the same thing, okay? You're not doing all this stuff just for your own benefit and your own personal circumstances. We really all do inspire and encourage each other. So as you begin to make it succeed, then all of a sudden you've got a bit of a program. It didn't take me long to figure out that most people who had a dream began to build a map and a plan. Once they had a map and a plan, they started to make the preparations for that trip, that journey. Then there's always an official launch. From the time you make that never turn back launch, then you start to check your directions, constantly measure and track your progress. Then you try and solve problems creatively, and then invest in sharing. So this is the beginning of getting a business going. This is the launch of the business, and then these are the three things that keep a business in the air from that point on. This is the 7 steps up our own mountains of success. And around Utah Valley, where I live, we have 7 magnificent mountains. I saw this on the cover of a decorating magazine, and it was Follow Your Gleam, not Follow Your Dream. This was a whole nother slant on something that I thought, oh man, if that's not clever and creative. That is something you want to keep around and keep it in your journal long enough to where those things begin to rub off on you. If you don't bother to do this, then you won't ever have anything to go on. You've got to bring what you like and appreciate the most up to the surface and maintain it long enough to where it actually begins to become a magnificent obsession. Once you get this far along, you don't need anybody else to help you. You will have it made from that point on. Do you have few people have this in their lives? Very few can say that they have a cultivated, magnificent obsession. Now, I show this slide up also because this is Yosemite. I love that valley a lot, but a lot of people think when I start talking about climbing mountains of success that I'm talking about this one. But the truth is, it's this one right here. Very straight up kind of an effort. It is not easy. Only 3 people out of every 100 have an ongoing successful business. Gary Price designed this particular piece of artwork. It's become the focal point for the I&E Network, and it's these 2 Native Americans helping themselves climb right straight up the sheer cliff. This is the I&E Network, because it's pretty hard to climb straight up that mountain alone. It's a hell of a lot easier if you've got others involved, especially like-minded people that are like we've got on the show tonight. The title of that piece is They Rise Highest Who Lift As They Go. And you can't wait for perfect moment. If you wait for the perfect moment, it's going to pass you by. And there's a lot of you sitting here listening to me tonight, or will listen to this show in the future as it's on YouTube. They'll bump into this moment right now, and I hope you'll make a promise to yourself. If you're going to do something with the really powerful last few years of your life, you better start today, not wait till tomorrow again. You can't put it off, and if you only have any road will do, then you'll never end up anywhere that you want to. Steve Covey was here from the Utah Valley and wrote 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And he had a concept called the North Star. There should be some one thing that you aim at. The rest of your life, you boil down your work effort and say, you know what, the rest of my life, I'm going this way. 7 Habits is one of the most successful books in history. He's the top 25 most influential people in the world, and it's because he started teaching people that it's a really good idea to pick out a North Star, something you go after, and then stay with it long enough for it to succeed. There are no overnight successes, only winners of the lottery. My first card, this is my first business card, actually had regular colored hair in those days. I'll try to make a business out of nothing, out of an eggshells, turn my hair to white completely. But I did this business card, and then I dropped it just about as fast because I made Lou Jensen Dentist is what I thought I'd make it, and been the idea of legend. Nobody realized I didn't spell it right, and so in the very first show that I did in Park City, somebody said, "So you think you're a legend already?" And that just killed me. That really fried my brain. So I have never. Do you ever find this business card now? Hang on to it. It's becoming a little bit of a thing. When you spot something like the arts and crafts movement, I've been alongside this world for quite a long time. But if you start aiming your brand towards crafting, you're automatically cutting your throat in the economy. Because art has a different perspective and mentality around it, perception, than does crafting. And you cannot, in the marketplace of ideas, blend these two. This does not work well. You cannot sell yourself as an artist if all you are is a crafter. And if all you are is a crafter, you will struggle for money the rest of your days. I can promise you that. So moving yourself from a desire and a dream to this earning category says, okay, what I got to do is learn how to fish. I got to learn fishing is marketing. And where you throw your hook depends largely on what you're going to actually accomplish. And how a business plan works and how a brand works is you're thinking of where you are in your as-is world, but where you'd like to be is where you begin to dream up today what you'll be tomorrow. And just promise yourself you're going to do it by design. Don't run your business or your life foolishly anymore. It's so hard to make things work that way. Now, I've shown this slide for a long time. To me, this is the best example of what a brand is and how it works. Out there in the marketplace, lightning could strike anywhere. But what a brand does is get your lightning to strike where you want it to, okay? You're trying to make the lightning that would maybe go randomly anywhere target and land right where you want it, okay? Disney has the strongest brands in the world. And when you show this image to anyone practically the world over, they know this is Walt Disney. They can identify it instantly. And that has a segment of a brand. Something that they guard and they've grown and they protect really aggressively so. Whenever I find anything to do with Walt Disney, I really hang on to it. And when I saw this little graphic and then the quote, it's kind of fun to do the impossible. To me, I hope you got the inclination and the attitude to do that very thing. I posted this quote that I've done. I wrote this up quite a while ago. Sometimes it's really fun to surprise everyone around you, but there's an even greater surprise for us all. It's rather enjoyable to surprise anyone who does not know you well, but it's much more fun to surprise and catch off guard those who didn't think we could pull anything off. But the really great surprise in life is when we come along and surprise ourselves. I had no clue when I started out 38 years ago that this would respond like it has. And I watch all of you guys playing on Google Plus and know that most are still trying to find their way. If you can absolutely begin to move in this direction and start shocking yourself at how well you're doing, now you're shifting the wind. You're beginning to sail with the wind rather than against it. Finding a way to aim the rest of your life is just huge. It's picking out which mountain you want to climb, not just climb for climbing's sake. You're literally going to make this go in the direction that you want it to go, okay? Success is not measured by what a person accomplished, but by the opposition they have encountered and the courage with which they have maintained the struggle against overwhelming odds. Everyone sitting in the show tonight with me has this same kind of advantage in their life. I could point to the success of each one of them at overcoming the odds, never giving up. How often do you see this concept in the marketplace and on Google+? Every master of anything will tell you a program that works must be one of commitment and dedication, not convenience. And too many people get clobbered right here. If it's easy for them to do, then they'll do it. If it takes some serious effort and dedication, then they won't. Never let the odds that keep you from doing what you know in your heart you were meant to do. You've got to get to this red line. What do you have left inside of you that really needs to be finished? I'm pushing the future of handmade aggressively. My best friend's entire $40 million collection is all handmade exotic stuff, and it's about to move into a position in the economy and on the web where I hope it will become the central focus of exotic, high-end, fine, artistic, handmade things, because the best things in life still are made by hand. Keith Holm carved this for me when I first launched the company. And this is a really fun example of a relief carving here and a drop relief here. So he outline cut both the lines of the lettering. Then inside he carved out the lettering here. And out here he left the wood alone and carved down the background. So drop relief here and semi-relief here. What a great mixture of something. And when he gave me this, I went, you know what? Anybody that's used a power pen to cut this, carve this, knows the time that took to carve, and it's in walnut even. And this is the kind of exchange and trade with my very best friend Keith Holm that we've had for years. But on the back of that slice, this is a triangle of walnut. He put one step at a time, which is Keith's whole life. You cannot be held back if you'll just do every step one step at a time. This is a cartoon drawing of the deer as it makes its steps, how the legs move as it goes from one to the next to the next to the next. Do you know how long this took to carve? Just guess. The time and the energy and the effort and the thoughtfulness. You couldn't give me anything that I would appreciate more than this. And that's what Keith and I have traded for years and years as we've gone down this path together. Now, if you could hand out your last business card in your life, and you got 1,000 of them to hand out, what would you most want to say on it? Now, this starts to help you begin to flesh out your brand. Literally begin to think in terms of my last handout card, okay? But now I want to push it a little harder. What if whatever you're going to say would be around influencing people from now on? Should be that profound. Going to take some time and some thought and some consideration to come up with something that good. Mark Twain wrote this, and every time I see it, if you could hold a cat by the tail, you'll learn things you cannot learn any other way. that, without a doubt, one of the most deadly quotes on the planet. I could just see him telling us that too, can't you? This is what we're talking about. We're talking something that's going to really make things click for you in the economy. And the wrong tool trying to do the wrong job doesn't work very well. Design is a tool. You're going to try and develop your own personal brand that begins to gradually elevate the perception of the value of you. Not your stuff, not your work. You're the secret here. Your brand is you. Who are you and what are you trying to become famous for? Now I'm going to break it up into 3 pieces. Tonight we're going to do stage 1, the theory. Tomorrow or next week and Wednesday night we'll do the building of your image. And then stage 3, the next one will be how to start using it, okay? Who are you? What do you have to trade and why? What are you trying to become known for? Think those are brands? If you had the chance to get in an elevator with these 2 women and go up a 13th floor building, and they're standing right there, and they turned to you and said, who are you and what do you do? Would you have an elevator pitch ready? Could you say in 11 seconds who you are and what it is you do? This helps you to begin to boil down to a significant brand. This came out on Easter Sunday in 1977. This is my son. I had meetings with him at the company today. All grown up now. But and I was even using the nail drill still to carve my eggshells with. This was before there was anything else out there. And when I can get this kind of a featured article published in the Salt Lake Tribune newspaper, everybody and their dog reads the Easter Sunday newspaper. I didn't have any control when it would come out, but oh my God, it did put a fire underneath what I was doing. This is an article done by Nancy Fitzpatrick in the National Decorator, Craft Decorator magazine. And I was carving now my first little drill right there. Doing a little carved eggshell for my mom. This is still in our family's life. Also done in 1977. This was the first article published about engraving in automotive glass by Dick Veloce. This was in Truckin' Magazine. And Dick coined the phrase high-tech engraving. We've used this since the beginning of the company, 1983 on. So these kinds of things are what begin to help you begin to see a brand, see a way to go, see the kinds of things that you can do. And then you watch for combinations between the things that you like and opportunity. When Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa were having the National Home Run Derby, I'm a home run baseball crazy nut. And it was the best thing to happen in baseball for I don't know how long. And I was a St. Louis crazy. So I engraved bats, and I did one for both of them because you couldn't tell who was going to get what. And I thought, well, hell, I'll do one for each of them. And I shipped them to Kenny Mayne, the ESPN sports anchor, and he delivered them to both of these players on the end of their way. I'll bet they're still in their lives. They're nice enough that they're still in somebody's life, I guarantee it. So this going fishing is taking ideas and concepts and giving it a try. If the idea hits you, then for hell's sakes, follow through. I heard that Steven Spielberg was coming to the National Boy Scout Jamboree, and I go every 4 years, and he was coming to be at the Jamboree, so I carved a walking stick for him, and I got it to Ben Love, who was the chairman of Scouting, and the next morning on the national paper, a big color photograph of Spielberg walking with my stick. And that bugger's been in my life ever since. I decided to do walk softly and carry a big stick for every president since Reagan has gotten a baseball bat from me. And I carved the bats, and I used a Big Stick professional model. It's called Big Stick professional model, and then I carved presidential right down the middle of it with the drill. Put a few doodads on it. This was when Bill Clinton was having trouble with the baseball strike. Remember, he tried to get in the middle of it, saw the strike, and got himself in a hell of a lot of trouble. So I just sent it to the Pennsylvania Avenue. I just engraved his name on there and just sent it to 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue with the handpiece. Then all you got to do is, Ken Brown figured this out, all you got to do is wrap a stamp on here at the post office. You don't have to wrap the bat. You just put the stamp on and send it away. And everybody between you and the president gets to see that big stick. I've done it for every one of them, and some of them I've gotten a letter back. One has not thanked me. I got a chance to do Volkswagen Trends. Dan Ledbetter was one of the editors for Macmillan Publishing. Had this cartoon drawn up for me, and I was engraving a powder-coated Volkswagen. So when you get one opportunity and you play with that a little bit, it's always amazing how that can come back into your life. When one door closes, another door opens. So we often look so long and regretfully upon the closed door, we do not see the ones which actually open up for us. I got that whole article, and they paid for me to go to California and actually do the engraving. And those kind of opportunities are things that you start to begin to build. Your brand is your fish hook, folks. So it's got to be a part of who you're going after and why. You can't just do anything and throw anything out and wait and see what happens. This is more by design than by accident. To me, marketing, the best corollary for marketing analogy is fishing. Systematic planning, implementation, and control of a mix of business activities intended to bring together buyers and sellers for the mutually advantageous exchange of the transfer of products. The trading of you with the economy, the trading with the particular fish that's going to bite your hook. Now, you can leave it up to word of mouth, or you can contrive it and push it a little bit, okay? This is our most famous ad. We put Keith Owen was our first master, our first successful story, and he'd been a school teacher for 25 years and wanted to retire early and play a little early and have a hobby business that would help support his retirement. And we put on there a dream come true for woodworkers, and we got an awful lot of response from that ad. Everybody and their dog saw that carving on a cabinet door and put 2 and 2 together of opportunity. Do you know how many custom cabinets are done every year in the economy? And if you began to carve for those people that are building and installing the cabinets, they can't do this part, but you sure could. An overlay like this and learning how to do it is a slam dunk. Kelly Thurgood's probably one of our most successful masters as well, quite an artist in every direction. And when you begin to realize that there's opportunities in every direction for the expression of your individual talent, once you start to find a few big fish in your life, things change dramatically. Kelly bumped into a guy that's one of the largest property landowners in the state of Utah and has been carving for him and building custom furniture for him ever since. Probably not much for anyone else. And this guy's a major hunter, and he takes Kelly and his wife on trips all over the world to go hunting with him every year. So this idea of going after a big fish, you're not trying to trade with everybody. You have got to go after with wants the upscale economy. You can't talk people who have a hard time even paying for the gun to pay you that much more again to do the carving. It just does not work well. This is Keith's signature piece. This was one that he became famous for. This was traded. This was mine, and we gave it to the guy. He was the head of his mother was the Lane Bryant Cedar Chest Company people, and his father was the Philip Morris Tobacco Company. And he owns half of Ocean City, Maryland. And we came to the carving competition, and he fell in love with Keith's piece. Everybody that sees this with money goes nuts, because you don't have to carve the tail or do the whole rest of the squirrel. You just know that that's a wood carving. So these style of designs, the whole family have made their fortune around releasing. They take the wood and then release the person and release the figure, the focal point out of it. But talk about a magnificent piece. So, who's in charge of your branding? Who's going to put that in concrete? Who's going to make it stick? If you've got the ability to carve, can you see how this was done, by the way? You outline trace on a finished stock, you outline trace these leaves, and usually put in the outside edge cut and then that defining border. And then all you do is come in and relief, carve the back, smooth off and shape these leaves a little, and finish it. So if it's a style and it's a pattern and it's something that you really do prefer and want to do more of, then you should pursue that direction. This one is just exactly the opposite. Outline, cut the lettering, and then just come back in and cut this background. And all this is a piece of sagebrush. Bandsaw comes in, whacks this off, cuts this off here, and then puts a person's name in here. This is sealed and stained here. So when he cuts and carves the lettering in here, and then relief carves the background, you can wipe this with a little stain here, and it won't take here, and it won't take there, but it'll stain darker where you've stippled. So do you know how often you can make one of these and give it away? You got a shot at an editor, you got a shot at a relationship that you want to grow. Good. Don't forget this image. Put this in your business personal journal and hang on to it. This is a drop relief decorative pattern that Keith teaches on doing custom doors. Any graphic could be here, gang. Isn't that dramatic? Is that gorgeous? Say you want to get in the RV business, then start carving RV doors, okay? We like to do these cameo kind of renditions where you start to learn to do these kind of carvings, and then you put their monogram right or their name right here. And most well-off people that have fancy guns just can't resist their monogram or their name on the gun. Now, a little higher level of carving, this what I'd call a class 2 or 3 carving, is a drop relief. So you're going to do some contrast carving into the background to the foreground, and then shape the animal, the focal point, dramatically. But I maintain anybody can learn to carve to this degree, especially if you got a pattern to kind of lay it out and get you started. You can learn to do all this stuff. Greg Woodard won in 1993. The World Championship is in Ocean City, Maryland. And when you start doing stuff like this, you don't start on the top of the mountain. You've got to climb up to your ability to be able to do this kind of stuff. Greg's passion is raising birds of prey. He started with this thread of interest. He has wanted and raised birds of prey, real ones, his whole life. He's a professional falconer. And so when he started to try and render these guys with their personalities, that's when things really took off for him. And when you can render something this well, this dramatic, the world usually will react. Most winning world champion falcon carver ever. And this one's his first world champion piece right here. Cactus needles are carved wood. The tail feather, this is all carved, all hand-carved wood. I started using him in the center of our advertising for that world. He's gone on and built himself a rather incredible image, and he has maintained his brand from day one. That's who Greg Woodard is. That's what Greg has done. So if you like the idea of that kind of a mountain to climb, then you start paying attention to how do I figure out the horizon? How do I know from as is to where I intend to be or I hope to be, okay? I'm going to show you another brand, another individual that's just knocked it. I don't know how you can live your life better than this. Sam started doing custom design and custom crafted furniture. And this was the last picture he had on Fine Woodworking magazine. Died in 2009. His chairs sell from $15,000 to $30,000 a piece, and they have a 6-year waiting list still. And this is his brand. This is what built him his name and his reputation. He developed his own designs gradually. Okay. He created a niche for all chair makers, because up to that time nobody had really stood out. Nobody had any unique kind of an image that they could go after. Look at his brand. Look at his name and his signature in them. If that's not the classiest rendition, I'll eat somebody's hat. That's so cool. It's unbelievable. And this became his studio. And if you wanted to come and watch Sam, you could come and spend a week with him, and I think it was $3,000 or $4,000 just to watch him work. Didn't teach you anything. You could just watch him work. And people would line up to go visit time and spend time with Sam Maloof. Everyone calls their production space a shop. He has always called his creative space his studio. Anybody know how I feel about whether you call it a shop or you call it a studio? This is crafting. This is art. You better pick up on these little subtle differences or you're going to struggle all the rest of your life. But his success wasn't an accident. He worked. Look at this. Look at the efforts and all the awards and recognition that he had. Bill Janney the same way. Bill started with us clear back in the 80s. All he wanted to do was make enough money with his part-time hobby-based business to go on hunting trips. Got a card from him and said he'd been in every hunting trip on every continent. And has incredibly just taken it from nothing to something significant. And once you start beginning to brand yourself as to who you are and what it is you do, then all of a sudden you start to have a tool in the economy that just rips things apart. Bill gave me this briefcase as he was finishing up his master's program, and I know how much that time that took. What a neat effort that is, and what a significant gift to me as an individual. I just could not have been more proud. And this was his first shot as a website. This is when we were first beginning to figure out that a website might actually help, that you could build a business around a website. Changed a bunch since then, and all by design, not this accident stuff. Don't leave your future to an accident. There is a pattern. This piece fits here, this piece fits here, this piece fits here. And when you find those corners, there's only 4 of these in a whole puzzle. They have a pattern unlike any other piece in the box. Those 4. So that's where you start. You establish the parameters of the rest of your life, what you're going to try and do and try and accomplish, okay? People give a fact or an idea and you enlighten their minds, tell them a story. You will touch their soul. The story of what you're going after will begin to be what people will buy. Denny Wainscott's one of the most successful gourd carving artists in the world. He's in the 10 to 20,000 per carving range of a carved gourd. And every piece has a story. And they're buying the piece from Denny Wainscott or Greg Woodard or Bill Janney. It has very little to do with the piece, the work itself. More to do with the person and who they're buying it from. Your brand should begin to be you. This is the moment that lit Bill Janney's life. He's bought double gun journals on the newsstand every month, and he's thumbing through it, and he saw this photograph. And he saw that carved, hand-carved, old German fish scale look right there. And he called me, he says, "Lou, I think I can carve fish scale with a drill." So Bill was the first one to start to figure out how to do this same kind of thing with a power tool instead of doing it with a chisel and a hammer. Once you start to sense there's these little moments, this idea that there's a concept that could be just yours, the very thing that you could become famous for is what you're now going to try and target. And you should literally listen to these little whispers that come along and say, you know what you ought to do is this or this or this. Okay, Windows has detected that your computer's performance is slow. You think? It it's on the same pace that Lou Jensen is now. I'm afraid. Any individual comment before we wrap it up tonight? Look how close we finished at the time. Look at that. Hey, I heard my chime in the hallway go off. So I tend to talk too long, everybody in this network knows, and so I'm slow. What do you think, Lance Larson? You're playing pretty aggressively with your brand now, boy.
Well, it seems like
Look at what Johnny's holding up.
I seem to get a little bit more every time I see it. And you've added a few other things to it, and it just makes me rethink what I'm doing, which I think you got to do. You got to make sure you're looking at it all the time. Oh, that's nice, Joni.
Constantly paying attention to it.
Joni, that was beautiful.
Hold that up, Johnny. Hold that up, Johnny.
Hey, look at that. You've been playing, haven't you?
Yeah, I just barely. It's not quite finished. I barely finished it today. Almost.
That's got some good depth. That's pretty. I like that.
Yeah, that's aggressive carving. That's really carving. That's really aggressive.
You know what I did? I have. It's not complete, but do you see the design around here?
Yeah.
All right, I hollowed
Put
out
an edge on that.
and then I happened to find this plastic wire, or and I was able to put it in there, and I'm going to finish doing it.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
It's protected.
So it's like a rounded bead then, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
That's
All right, that's different. No one's done that I've seen. That's a unique way to come at it, isn't it?
Yeah.
Isn't it amazing how every time you think you've seen everything, you really haven't? And someone is going to one-up it every damn time. And what I like is it's our bunch that often does that very thing. You have tools and creativity, and you mix those together. My only quote so far in my life is the miracle's in the doing. And you keep playing around with enough of your doing, a miracle's going to show up and split the Red Sea, and all of a sudden you will have defined the rest of your whole flipping life because you were doing, you were trying, you were making the effort to come up with something new. And I think all of eternity gets involved to help you actually accomplish that. I really do. Atta girl. Joni, way to go. Thank you for bringing
Let
that.
me ask something real quick. Like, I've got this signal that keeps coming on my screen. Poor, now it's gone. It says poor volume. And I'll click on it, and then it goes away. Oh, well.
No, that's got to be a computer, individual computer. All right, tomorrow night now. If you've got a thought that was generated, I can't imagine you sitting through these slides and not have some one or two things pop you a little. What happened to Bill? What happened to Greg? What this and that, whatever. There's got to have been one of those concepts that banged you a little bit. You don't write it down right now, and we don't start talking about it tomorrow night in the lab. By Friday, it will be gone. You will have forgotten that you even had a concept, that you were a consideration or something that would help you learn here. Because not any of you have a really good finished brand yet. Not one of you. You really do need to zero in on that even more every year. I do the same show. I go through it again. I try and tweak it to say, listen, this is valuable stuff, until you find that major patron. You get that one patron, that one person that kind of pays the bills from then on. What Kelly Thurgood did, what Greg Woodard has done, what I have done, what Darwin's done, that's the whole goal until that happens. And you've got to be somehow rememberable. If I stood you up in front of a show and presented each of you and your artwork to 1,000 human beings, I had a show and you got to be presented at this show. If I did 30 people's names and their work, out of the 1,000 people, how many would remember you a week later? Honest to God, that's just the bloody truth and reality of the economy. There is so much out there now and so many things available. They're not going to remember you. They're not going to remember you. I had a conversation with a psychiatrist, just got his kit. He's jumping aboard now. He's from Seattle, and he's going to carve and do guitars and in banjos. He's just a banjo music nut, but he wants to learn to make them. So Robert's going to help him get started. And he said, Lou, he says, I saw you 10 years ago at a woodworking show, and I cut that little little wooden leaf with you. And he says, I have never, ever forgotten it. Now, there's a lot of you sitting right here with me tonight that have that same story. That little demo that I did was a 3-minute carving that just leveled people because they never dreamed in 9 lifetimes they could carve to that degree that fast. There's a reason that little YouTube clip's got 1 million views on it, because it's pretty deadly stuff. And once you see it, oh my gosh, I think I can do this. Okay, now we got to do it by design. We got to make it into a formal, legitimate business. And don't sit there and ignore branding. Don't let another year go by that you don't have a personal brand, that you're, every time you put something into the economy, you're making that name and that reputation of you enhance somehow. It's you that's the ace in the deck. It's not your work. It isn't your work that's important. What's important is you, and that they remember you. Carved eggshell's a fairly unique product. And all I did was hammer that home. I stayed on it and stayed on it and stayed on it. Precious thread of interest that you never, ever let go of. And I think there's anything you wanted to turn into a brand could be done. All right, appreciate the chance to sit down with you. I got 1,000 things going yet tonight and a few emails I got to get back, so we'll get tomorrow night. Don't not put down what you're thinking about, and then follow through on it with what we're going to talk about tomorrow night. We'll see if we can't come up with some ideas that will maybe develop or flesh out this concept of a brand a little more. Okay? All right, thank you much. And next week will be the building of a brand. Good night, everyone.